Maybe could you tell us something about how you came in contact with the horn? What were your first moments of horn playing, and maybe some inspiring musicians who inspired you to play the horn or be a musician?
Well, good question. I started learning piano when I was little, and then violin from I was 6. So I played in a youth orchestra, violin, and then there were some crazy horn players there. And they talked about, the sound of eternity. When everything else stops, there's the horn tone, and I was like, huh? Really? Oh, I got really intrigued. Mm-hmm. And then one of them went to study abroad and gave me a mouthpiece. So, and then I asked in an amateur orchestra to borrow a horn, which they had one. Mm-hmm. And my mother didn't think it was a good idea because all of these violin lessons, So I played parallel horn and violin for 2 years. But I don't think I heard a lot of recordings that inspired me. It was more the live. And then, of course, immediately the conductor said, you can play horn in the orchestra, And the amateur orchestra said, come back in 2 weeks, we need horns. So at the time in Norway, they needed the horn players, so I got a good start. Okay. And of course, I have the so-called perfect pizzas absolutus år. Mm-hmm. So it was easy for me to know which note I was trying to get. And if I missed it, I knew that I missed it. Okay. So that's an advantage.
Okay. And when did you start to teach? What were your first lessons? How did it become a teacher?
I really think teaching is in my blood. It's in the family. My mother was a pianist and a piano teacher. My grandfather was a pedagogue in school, and always in school I helped my classmates. They asked, how can I don't understand this, and I was on the phone telling them mm-hmm. how to do it, and it's very natural to me. And I got my first student when I was 19, I think. And it's just something I did on the side of playing. But then in the later years, it's been omgekert, opposite. Yes. So that it's my main occupation. Okay. Because I like it, and I started to get more conscious about how to do a better job.
Yeah. Okay. You wrote also some very nice, I think, books, lesson books, methods. What were the biggest reasons to write an own book?
I simply wanted to save time in the lessons. You know how much time in the lessons we talk sometimes, and the people have questions. What do you think about this or that? And I could just say, read the book, and then you know a lot more. But the book is not a complete method. It's really just gedanken, thoughts. So thoughts on different things. Okay. And then I've written also some articles that I'm going to put together.
Which points are very important for you in a lesson? Which kind of things you always very aware of how you teach? So, for instance, intonation or sound, or are there some things you always try to bring it over to the student?
Yeah, I would say each lesson is different. But of course here in the Norddeutsche Horntage, the students come for one lesson and that's it. It's a 40 minutes thing, and I try to look at the complete, what they do. But of course for most people, if you give them all the information, it's too much. Mm-hmm. If you say, okay, I'll tell you 7 things that you need to fix, and like they go out from the lesson like, depressed. So if you can give them 1 or 2 things that they could fix, maybe even on the spot, they will be more encouraged and think, oh, there is hope. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes I say to people, I think your articulation could be better, for example. And they say, oh yeah, like they know already, somebody told them already. So it's not a big new thing, or intonation. But then I try to come in with a method, with like, okay, try this or try that, and let's fix it now. It's not coming next year, it's coming today. And if we can accomplish something like that, and even if we have audiences like, yeah, that was better, mm-hmm. It's very encouraging for the student. Okay. And for me, it's a little bit, of course, sportif, like I can get the results in a short time.
Yes. Well, which point is coming back to the most students in general? Which kind of point is it? Where do you work the most on during this week? Is it more the intonation or articulation, or is it hard to say which is an upcoming problem?
I would say different for each one, you know. And for some, it's about breathing. They're still in the old-fashioned information about breathing. You know, only breathe here. And for me, as a woman, especially, it's important to get the message through that. The women want equal rights, but we don't have equal lungs. It's not fair. And in music, we don't have separate classes, you know, one for women, like in sports.
Yes, yes.
So we are together because psychology and music, they overwin the physical handicaps. So say that your lungs as a woman or as a small person are not so big as like for you, for example. Well, you just have to be smarter about using what you have, and also going to your 100% more often than the men. And sometimes it's difficult because not all my male colleagues are updated. They still teach what their teacher said, you know. Oh, breathe only here. You know. No. It's not enough. So I would say breathing is a big one. Intonation is very big. I'm very picky on intonation. And I think I would say a good system to fix them up. Okay. Play them on the piano with the tempered on the mouthpiece and get it right, the intervals. Because the strings, you know, I have a background from strings, they are so picky. And they start day one, you know. Well, if you hit the wrong place on the string, move your finger. Is it too flat? Okay, move the finger up. Oh, great. And little by little it sinks in, you know. So those two things are maybe but then for the good ones, because then like here there are some really good players who can do it all, I'm more on interpretation. Okay. Because I think it's important that we as brass players also try and acknowledge the difference between art and craft. And you ask people what's the difference, and they're like, cool. Yeah, art is. It's not so easy to say, but there is a difference in the storytelling. Once upon a time, you know, or once upon a time. Oh yeah, what happened? You know, if you can manage to get that dimension into the playing, you know, everybody is interested.
In what way do you think that a teacher can put influence on the student to change things or make them better?
I think many ways, and depends on the personality of the student. When they are young and maybe a little bit insecure, it's a good thing for the teacher to be close, because you can transmit the energy and kraft eigentlich. When they get older and better, I make a point to try and be distant when they play, so that they can feel that they are alone. Because it's a lonely feeling when the teacher is close. But then when I get close, I can help with the body language. We can do dancing to help the phrasing. Conducting or just showing stuff for the reminder. I like sometimes to use visual signs, you know. I should show my latest tool. Nice. It's like, you know, if you say something a couple of times and they don't get it, it's like, you know, warning. If it's really bad, like, see you next week.
But are they then afraid for you? Or
no, I do it for fun. It's okay. Just for fun. And I think humor is really important. Because when you ask people, you know, what do you want from a teacher? Well, they want inspiration, they want motivation, they want good information, and they want that the teacher demanding. So it's a question of being demanding without being threatening.
Okay.
So that they feel, and also maybe to see that there's not just one way, but people have different teeth and different lips, and they have different history. So it's not always that one size fits all, you know. You have to make compromises and say, Well, I had one good student in Iceland, Stefan Bernhardsson. Anyway, he had a pretty strange embouchure, and I tried to fix it a little bit, but he was like, yeah, well, you know, a little reluctant. Came back next year, he had a year and it was better, and I said, oh, did you fix it? Well, I found out in the orchestra that I needed such. He was so stubborn. So I asked his first teacher, why didn't you fix this, you know, before he came to me? And he said, I was afraid he was going to quit.
Oh, okay.
Because if you're too stubborn on one thing, but there are so many things. There is also the music, you know. In tune on time, there's a beautiful sound. Everything doesn't stop here, you know. You develop in so many areas. So this came by him. It came little by little. I think it took 3 or 4 years.
Do you think we are too much focused on the technique and the embouchure? That people
I think some people. I think some people do. Yeah.
Okay. Good. And of course, practicing is also a big issue for musicians. I heard you saying smart practicing. What do you mean with that? How do you advise students to practice?
Yeah, smart practicing would be about quality. I mean, I've been doing the warm-up here two times now, and every time I say, okay, let's play this note on the mouthpiece. I sing the note, okay, and there's, of course, there's 100 people, but still, there's somebody who goes, they said, no, I want it at once. Okay, so we go, and suddenly it's better. But it didn't come from them, it came from a teacher, or from some of them, I mean, just a few. And just to kind of stress that, also underline that even in the warm-up, it's not about I'm warming up without quality. No, I'm warming up with good intonation, good sound, and get a note at once.
Okay.
The note, and I know which one I want to get. I'm not like, you know, take a note, you know.
Yeah, okay. You teach for so many years in an incredible, nice way, I think, and a lot of people let me think that too. What gives you so much energy all over these years to be so fit and so focused on the students? What's your secret?
The secret? Well, I don't know. I think it's in part of my DNA, but also I do the meditation every day. Twice. I've been doing that for 30 years. It really helps. Get the garbage out of the mind and come back. Even yesterday, I think I did a 20 minutes dip in the concert. Sorry to say that, but but I heard everything else.
Okay.
And it's just kind of going down, you know, going down and then getting this and come back up. But also, I must say that the pleasure of being able to help, it also feels a little bit like an obligation, because I have talent for it, and I have developed some methods, and the young people, they want to know what can be better, but they also want to know how. It's not enough to just tell them, you know, I mean, okay, what can we do about it? You know, there is some suggestions. And they get more encouraged.
Okay. These masterclasses, for instance, if you have to give a summary about the Norddeutsche Horntage in 3 or 4 sentences, how would you make the summary about this course where you're teaching now?
Yeah, it's a really super meeting place for young people. And it's also, like for the very young, a shopping place for checking out the different teachers. Where will I go to study? And it is a place where they can catch information. And some of them are very smart. They come with the same piece to 4 days, different teachers, and they experience how different it can be. You know, one person focuses on this, you know, and the next teacher says, well, you know, let me tell you about Mozart, you know. Here is the book, and etc. And they just get a really nice variety of teaching styles, I think.
Okay. So what makes the horn so special for you?
Well, in the end, I chose the horn because, well, you had your own part in the orchestra, you know, the strings, they play in groups. And the sound is so intriguing, this intensity. And of course also the feeling of mastery and the feeling of people asking, come and play solos, you know, and you kind of grow on that. And I do think it is the soul of the orchestra, you know. It goes with the strings, it blends with the woodwinds, it goes with the brass, has it all.
How do you give students more confidence in your lessons when you're feeling, she's not feeling very well, or he's not feeling very well, or maybe a little bit insecure, but which I think is very normal with musicians, we always think. How do you work on that?
Yeah, that's another very good question. I don't give them self-confidence, I try to help them build it. You know, I actually written up here in the room what the musician need, in my opinion: good music, good technique, and good self-confidence. And how to work on it? Well, it's to be encouraging, to enjoy every little success. Even nowadays I don't play anymore in public, but I do play in the lessons a little bit. And if I happen to play something really good, it happens still. I go like, wow, that was good. And I do this to myself, and they are like surprised. But I said, it's necessary. I'm building up a little confidence for what I still can play. And you should do it in the practice room too, you know, when something's good. And when something's not good, it's important to like, oh, I'm stupid, oh, I can never get it right. No. It's like, oh, how interesting. I made a little mistake. I wonder why. I wonder how I can fix it. It's like, you know, make it a research project, you know, like it's kind of cold. But otherwise, it's about encouraging and at the same time being honest, but in a nice way. You don't have to say everything all the time.
What would be the message you want to give to young horn players who want to be in an orchestra or want to be a solist? Is there a kind of message you want to give them on their way?
Yeah, I would say what they said to me when I was young: don't become a musician unless you have to. Because there are people who are a little bit, I'll do the audition to the school and see if I get in, you know, and if not, I'll become a dentist or, you know, something else. Well, become a dentist and have fun with the horn, you know. But if you have to, if this is your thing, you must do it. Then I'll support them all the way and say that music is fantastic, and I think music is important in a society. And it's important that you play on a high level, but also its teaching is important. I don't see that as a plan B, you know. And I love to see at least 1 or 2 students here have expressed that that's what they want to do, you know. They want to become teachers.
And do you also have a message for teachers?
Yeah, yeah, for teachers, yeah, there are many messages for teachers, you know. Remember that in the relationship between the teacher and the student, the teacher is the one who gets paid. So it's not equal. And some people say, oh, I am myself, I have to be myself, I have to be honest. It's not always true. You don't have to be yourself 100% if the student's need is different than who you are. So I'm not speaking about acting or playing a role, but I'm speaking of different angles to this or that particular student. And what worked for you when you grew up may not work for these people. And this is a difficult area here now. So it's important to have a tool set, you know, like different people, different needs.
Okay, good, Froydis. Thank you very much. It's great to have you here.